Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
Hey. Frank, you're on mute.
You're muted, Frank. Go for it, Franco.
I'm Frank Cooper.
Sorry. I'm Marcy Gonzalez.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss Season 4, Episode 4 of the award-winning series, the HBO series, I should say, not the Max series. We might talk about that later. But no, it's still HBO. It's HBO to me, damn it. The HBO series Succession. Most recent episode was titled Honeymoon States. And Marcy, this is your first time joining us for the Succession rewatch pod. I'll get your thoughts first. What are your overall thoughts on the fourth episode of season 4?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it might be a little bit more somber or darker. So I was kind of psyching myself up to watch it. But I'm glad I did watch it last night because it had just the right amount of like somber tone, but also lots of humor peppered into it and sarcasm. And then just obviously kind of like the backroom dealings and double crossings that we all know and love from Succession. So I think it was a really great episode. And I love seeing Marcia come back. So we'll talk about her later. But yeah, she was great.
Yeah, we definitely will talk about Marcia. Frank, what are your thoughts on the episode overall?
I liked it. I liked the episode. It was kind of like a dawn of a new era with this episode. The first episode in this series, Inception, without Mr. Logan Roy. Again, like it's just the battle lines have been drawn. I think we talked about a little bit last week between the old guard and the new guard, and just seeing the chess moves that's happening all inside this apartment that Logan once owned, and the jockeying for power and like the power plays. It was very Game of Thrones-esque as far as like the little power plays that each side was making. So I can't wait to see what comes out of this. But I'm very interested to see like how Waystar, Rocco, or ATN, how the future of this company is had.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you mentioned, it's the first episode post Logan's death. And to me, it felt like it was kind of more the same in a good way, though. Like it felt like basically Logan Roy was obviously he was the founder of this company and arguably the main character of this show. But, he's gone. But not only does the world keep spinning, but his company keeps spinning. And the battle for power, which was going on while he was living, is continuing while he's dead. And it was just another great episode. Like, I think, I don't know. I think I was expecting it to kind of like kick into high gear, and it was just typical Succession. It's the day after. Apparently every episode in season 4 is one day in the story. So it's just going to be 10 days basically since the end of season 3 is what season 4 is going to be. So I thought it was like a, true to itself episode of Succession. And it kicked off with, we see, the siblings, their like day after thoughts on what happened with Logan's death. And they show Kendall and he's like devastated. Right. And you can tell he didn't sleep at all and looks like a mess. Roman, on the other hand, is like, he's brushing his teeth. He looks like he's doing fine. Like it's just another day. And Roman even tells his siblings that, he says that he's fine because he like pre-grieved. He was prepared for this moment of his father's death. And that, I mean, I don't totally believe him. I don't think any of us probably do, but he is definitely handling it better than anybody. And then we get to Shiv. And Shiv also appears to be pretty bummed out. She's in bed and she gets a call from her doctor. And we find out that she's pregnant. This was pretty shocking. Marcy, what do you think about that? I didn't see this coming at all.
I saw it coming just a little bit, especially because in last week's episode, we saw her. I mean, she still looked beautiful for Connor's wedding, but she was kind of wearing like this blazer that was a little bit weird, even for like a November wedding. And also her hair was just kind of up in like this kind of messy bun. So I was like, okay, like we could have put in a little bit more effort. And then people online were commenting like, maybe she's pregnant and that's why she looks like that. Again, like she had very minimal makeup, so it did look like maybe she's been tired or maybe she's been having some morning sickness. So after I read some of those things online, I was like, okay, like maybe this is something that's going to happen. And sure enough, when she takes that call and we find out it's her doctor, I was like, okay, yes, so they are making this happen. It'll be interesting to see how it progresses and kind of the dynamics between Shiv and Tom now, but then also between Shiv and her brothers, because later on she does I think she feels like she got double crossed by her brother, so we'll see kind of how those dynamics move forward.
Yeah, exactly. Frank, so we found out that Shiv is pregnant. I mean, it seems like Tom is the father. Is he? Do you think he is?
Well, that's what throws me off, because I know each episode's a day, and I know it wasn't too long ago that she was messing with old buddy from her past gig or past job.
I think that was season 2, wasn't it?
Was that season 2? I could
Don't
have sworn they messed around early on season 3 as well.
Maybe so. Yeah.
But it's so hard to track like the days and like how much time has passed. But we do know, I mean, from the entirety of this series, that she's messed with either Tom or her former colleague on the political side of things. So it's one of the two options. I mean, for TV purposes, it'd be way more spicier if it was the other guy. But I think the way the show was going, with so much uncertainty with the divorce proceedings and how she's cold towards Tom, I think she knows Tom's the father, and I think they're just adding all the spiciness and uncertainty between the two to make it more dramatic. But now my question is, I mean, once Tom finds out, does he work harder to try to maintain the marriage, and is that his? And does he view that as his end to stay with the family, because he might have a progeny on the way?
That's a good point. Marcy, what do you think about that?
I think out of the two of them, it seemed maybe like Tom wanted kids a little bit more than Shiv did. So kind of to go along with what Frank's saying, that might, push him to really patch things up with Shiv. We saw him really try. At the beginning, it seemed like they were both cold towards each other, but as the episode progressed, we saw him try to comfort her a little bit more, even in his own weird Tom way. But these are two people that I probably wouldn't think are the most like paternal and maternal figures. So again, it will also be interesting how they kind of progress as her pregnancy progresses, how they kind of grow, hopefully, into those roles. Otherwise, it's another generation of Roys that's going to be kind of fucked up, just like this one and the ones before.
And I think we saw that too, like in season 3, when they go to their mother's wedding, there was a hint that she was going to be pregnant based on like a lot of the unresolved emotional distress that she had with her mother. And I think there was a scene where her mother was like saying something to the effect that she shouldn't be a mother, or like she's not equipped to be a mother. I can't remember the exact words, but it was a scene between Shiv and her mother about that too. So I saw that as a lead in and potential foreshadowing of her being a mother herself, or being pregnant at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tricky thing with Shiv, and with her, she's involved in this power play also, and she's trying to find her way in it. And it doesn't seem like from the phone call she takes from the doctor that she is really that interested in being pregnant. So she wasn't, I mean, granted, the doctor's office is calling her the day after her dad died, but they're calling her with what is good news for most women, I would think. And Shiv's responses are just like, yeah, okay, cool, set up the appointment, whatever. Like, she has no real emotion. And yeah, I don't know. I think she would prefer not to be pregnant. If I had my if I were betting, that's the way I would bet. So, which would make sense, because this is a messed up family. And speaking of that, as Marcy mentioned before, Marcia is back. Logan's second wife, right? Somewhat estranged, I believe. She hasn't been in the picture for a little while. Though according to Marcia, her and
Third
Logan
wife,
spoke.
right?
What's that?
Third wife, right?
Is it third wife?
We talk Connor's mom.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Mom, yeah.
I keep forgetting Connor's mom. There you go. His third wife. I'm sorry. Yeah. So but they're not divorced. They're still married, I believe. And as Marcia said, they were in contact every morning and every afternoon, and they would have intimate calls every night, which she told Kendall that, which that's kind of disturbing to think about with those two characters. But Marcia like comes back and she is like all business. She like on the spot decides to sell Logan's apartment home to Connor for $63 million. And they seal the deal with a spit in the hand handshake, which I can't say I've had the pleasure of having one of those. So Marcy, what did you think about Marcia in this episode?
I loved her. I think she just brought such strong energy. I loved, again, right, just seeing her again, and then just kind of everything that came out of her mouth afterward and all of the scenes that she was in. Again, her telling Kendall, when he's like, what are you doing here? Where have you been? Basically. And she said, yeah, I've still been pretty much involved in Logan's life. We talked every night intimately. And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that they kind of like take this and run with it later, which I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
And then just her interaction with Carrie, she just handled that so effortlessly. She didn't even bat an eyelash whenever she saw Carrie walked in. She just had it handled. So it was just really, really fun to see her just handle her business, secure that bag. I mean, like you show up to your husband's, I guess, wake, and then you sell your apartment for $63 million. So that is very much like boss moves. Way to go, Marcia.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty strong move. I did like how Willa was talking to Connor. She's like, you're not supposed to like make these kind of purchases like the day after somebody dies or whatever. And he's like, yeah, but you're also not supposed to pay realtor fees. So he had no problem just dropping the dime right there. And I love how Marcia's just like, he's like, Connor's like, whenever you want to sell this, and she's like, right now, like between 60 and 70 million. And he throws out a number and she's like, cool, let's shake hands and it's done. So I loved how fast that how that changed hands. Frank, what are your thoughts on Marcia in this episode?
Bro, Marcia came off the bench, dropped 28 and 16 in like 12 minutes, and they won by 10 because of her contributions. Like and it's crazy because like she wasn't much of a substantial character early on in season 1, 2, and 3. I mean, she had a little run-ins with Shiv and like, things of that nature. But this is probably her best acting as far as the series is concerned, because I honestly forgot about it for a while, and the show made it to a point where it was very unclear whether or not they were still married or not, and whether or not she still played a part in Logan's life. And so to come in and have all these boss moves, pretty much sell her apartment within 30 seconds, and then pretty much, shit on Carrie coming in, and then and pretty much, letting people know, hey, I'm still part of this family, whether you like it or not, and I'm here to stay. Yeah, she's dope. She's dope. Though I would say she got bested by, of all people, Willa on the part where they think she congratulated Connor and Willa being married, and like she told Willa, you've come so far, and like Willa comes back and is like, yeah, we both have. I'm like, oh shit, okay, Willa, backbone. I ain't mad at that.
Yeah, so. I really enjoyed how Willa kind of clapped back at her right there. Just like, yeah, we're both in the same boat. I see you too. Like it's, we're on the same level here. But Marcia, you and Frank both mentioned the Carrie scene. So let's just go ahead and get to it. It happens later in the episode, but it's Marcia's probably biggest moment in the episode. So Carrie, which last time we saw her, she was on the plane when Logan died, and she was like had like a Joker kind of face. Tom was making fun of her and calling her Chuckles or a clown or whatever he called her. And so we see her in this episode. She walks into the apartment during the wake. And I like how Greg is like just like his like heel turn is just continuing, like he's like giving his commentary to Marsha. He's like, "Oh, look who crawled out of the woodwork." And he's like, "Oh no, she's coming over. It's so distasteful." And then Marsha, like Carrie wants to go upstairs to get some of her personal belongings because she was, Logan's like advisor slash girlfriend slash, I guess, would be wife, according to Carrie. And so anyway, Carrie wants to go upstairs. Marsha won't let her go upstairs. And basically, she has one of the security guys give Carrie her belongings in a bag. And, I'm sorry, Carrie then, of course, drops the bag, which I thought for sure we were going to get to see like drugs or something, which I think there was probably prescription stuff, but she drops her stuff all over the floor. Roman, of all people, is the one who has like some compassion. He's helping her pick up her things and helping her try to get together so she can get out of there. And, she's like kind of, as she's crying, she's kind of like telling Roman, like, we were talking about getting married, and, he was, meaning Logan, he was making arrangements for us. He's like, so can you check on that? And, Logan's like, I don't think I even have your number. Like, you got to send me your number, all this kind of stuff. But he's like actually, showing some compassion. And then she starts crying even more. And then Greg jumps in. He's like, oh, here comes the waterworks. Like, I just love how Greg is like needling Carrie, which is a continuation off of, what happened in episode 2. Yeah, just a great, like, the heel turn for Greg is definitely in the works. Marcy, what did you think about that whole Carrie scene with Marcia?
Yeah, I love how you talked about Greg. I think he also had a really great episode as well. Just how he was, like saying he was sorry to everybody, but again, like inserting himself, like, okay, like, yes, I'm so sorry for your loss, but how can this benefit me in a kind of way? So yeah, I loved his whole commentary as well. But yeah, Marcia, again, she handled it like a boss, like the lady of this house. And she said, nope, you are not going upstairs. You can collect your things in this little, bag or whatever, shopping bag. And then they will put you on the subway and take you back to your tiny apartment. So I think that just kind of was like the best little clap back that she could have, and just still stayed very classy and unbothered. So do we feel a little bit bad for Carrie? I don't know. Did she really love Logan, care for him, or was she also trying to look out for herself? We don't know. I'm not very bothered by Carrie's feelings at this point. But it was also interesting to see like Roman, of all people, be the one that was kind of like helping her and kind of making Marcia feel like maybe she needed to have a little bit more of a heart.
Yeah, she, Roman's even like looking to Marsha, and he's like, "Hey, like, does that need to happen like that? Like, it's the day after his dad died. His dad died, but obviously her lover, which also happens to be Marsha's husband. So that's kind of sticky situation. So, Frank, do you think this is the last we've seen of Carrie?
No,
Nope.
Look, I said last week, I think Carrie fucked him in the bathroom. I think he had a heart attack from sex. And I think that's gonna come out eventually. Because it's so unclear. Like, I know Roman kind of jokingly mentioned that, his father dropped his iPhone in the toilet and had a pulmonary aneurysm, whatever they want to call it. Yeah. I don't think that's what happened. I think Carrie was a part of his death. I don't think it was on purpose, but I think he was having the ride of his life, and it stopped sooner than he thought it would. But no, shout out to Marsha, man. Like, she's the ultimate gatekeeper of the second floor. I remember episode 3 of season 1 where, Logan had that heart attack, or that whatever you want to call it, and Shiv was trying to go see her dad, and like Marsha stopped her then. So like I don't know, that was just like symmetry between 4 and season 1, but I thought it was mildly interesting as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Marcy, same question to you. Do you think this is the last we've seen of Carrie?
I don't think so either. I think maybe like we'll see little bits of her throughout the season, or again, like Frank said, and kind of what they alluded to in season 3 at their mom's wedding, is that Connor, for some reason, thought that Logan was wanting to have a kid with Carrie and maybe like have, another kid and maybe raise that kid up to take over everything.
Right.
So that could also be like a bombshell that we might see. Like, is Carrie pregnant? That would be really interesting. Although I don't know if they would have like Carrie pregnant and Shiv pregnant at the same time.
Yeah.
But I think we might see Carrie at least once more before the season is over.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines as both of y'all. The thing is, because the season's basically every episode is a day, if Carrie did help cause Logan's death by sex or whatever, I don't know that we're gonna find that out in this, through the run of the season. But I do think that we're gonna see her sprinkled in here and there just because she's a good character at this point. And but I do think it's probably the last time we've seen Marcia and Carrie, unless we get a funeral episode, which I feel like we probably will. But again, if it's going by each episode is a day, that probably wouldn't come until maybe episode 8 or 9, because you think it's like maybe a week after the death. So anyway, it's all very interesting. All these characters are so well written that I like, even the ones you don't like, which there's not too many of them that I don't like, but you never want to see them go away. But it's kind of interesting because like this show does a good job of making it seem like real life. Like Logan's death was very much like real life. People just die. They're not given these like chances to have these moments with family members or these chances to have these amazing speeches where they say their final words. People just die in the bathroom on a plane or whatever, whatever the circumstance. So if we never see Carrie again, like I can totally see it, but I think that she's an interesting enough character that you I kind of want to see her again. There's also the fact that she still has these aspirations to work at ATN, which that's probably dashed for now or for good, but I think we'll see her at some point. Moving on. So, this episode, it basically takes place at Logan's house during they're having a wake for him. And Shiv talks about, the very beginning, she says, this, for some of us, it's a sad day, but for others, it's Coronation Demolition Derby, which I thought was a great quote, which leads us right to the old guard versus the new guard. And the old guard being Jerry and Carl and Frank and Carolina. And they're all kind of meeting at the house. And they start talking about like, who could the board pick? Who could be the next CEO? And then we kind of get their pitches where Carolina says, well, it should be Jerry. She's done it before. She did a good job. And then Carl, he kind of throws his hat in the ring. He's saying, well, he's the CFO and he has all this experience. Maybe it should be him. And then, of course, Tom kind of, finds himself with the group and then he pitches himself, which I thought was one of the funnier things in the episode was, Tom says, if there's a ring, I'll throw my hat into it. And so Carl's like, well, you know what? Let me just be like devil's advocate for you. And I'm going to pitch the negative side. He said, he's like, you're a clumsy interloper and no one trusts you. The only guy that was pulling for you is dead. And you're married to, you're married to the ex-boss's daughter and she doesn't even like you. And Tom is like, Jesus, Carl. And it's just like, he's like, he's like, you're fairly fucked. Like, he basically just like spells it out after like kind of dancing around. I just love how like all these people are gunning for that spot. And like, Tom, as we see throughout the episode, he's just there to serve. He's here to serve, but he also, was able to shoot his shot. And it doesn't seem like Tom is going to be the leader of the old guard. I mean, of course, the old guard isn't going to be in the lead as we find out later, but yeah, Tom's not leadership material. It doesn't seem. Marcy, what do you think about Tom as far as that scene and like, as far as his place in the company?
I felt just a little bit bad for Tom. And, Frank's just kind of telling him like, this is how it is. But also, how is he not self-aware enough to realize that is how people see him? Yeah. Because again, nobody trusts him. Nobody really expects a lot out of him anyway. And he's always talking about how the Roy siblings are fuck ups, but also like you're also kind of a fuck up.
Yeah.
So let's have a little bit of self-awareness. And I think it's very evident that he's just somebody that is always doing things for clout and trying to get ahead. So it was just fairly obvious, as much as he's doing like well, I just want to be of service. No, you don't want to be of service. You want to like get this job. Like we all know, at least be brave enough to name it like Jerry does, like Carl does, right? At least own it and don't just be like, well, like I just want to do it to serve and I want to throw my hat in the ring respectfully. It's like, no, at least just be upfront and be honest.
I think I don't know that he necessarily wants the big job, but I think he definitely wants to keep his spot at the very least. He's like all these characters, he's worried about his position. And that's why he goes to each, almost like Littlefinger in this episode, where he goes to each character and kind of, throws his support kind of behind them, but also tells them a tale that will kind of, put something in their head to make them maybe, create some chaos where he might be able to slip his way in. So, Frank, what do you think about Tom as far as the way he, was kind of going to everybody and kind of talking in their ear a little bit, trying to get them to see his way of doing things?
I mean, for TV purposes, it was definitely entertaining and funny, for sure. Tom is not a smart guy when it comes to this business. His lack of intelligence and his lack of reading the room makes it very entertaining to watch. But if I was Tom in that state, I would just shut the fuck up and just work hard and just work in silence and prove your worth that way. I think Tom did nothing more but hurt his position by conveniently saying that, hey, I would like to put my hat in. It was so comical. I think it's going to damage him long term with the old and new guard. Nobody respects him. And holistically, his best chance into like staying in his family is staying married to Shiv. And once this baby thing comes out, other than that, he offers zero value work wise to the company. And I don't know. I would have thought that he would have done a better job of like suckling at the power teat to multiple people, not just Logan. Because like it seemed like the last season he was just kissing Logan's ass and nobody else's. So like I think that created more division and more contempt for Tom, especially with the old guard.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what Shiv says later on. She's like, whenever Tom comes up to Shiv and kind of offers his condolences, which I do believe he is. I don't think Tom is like this like evil villain. I think that he is he's in this world. He's found himself in this world and he's trying to survive. And he's not the best dude by any means, but I don't think he's like the worst person. But he comes up to Shiv and he says, it wasn't my dad that died, but I'm sad. And then she just kind of looks at him and dismisses what he says and says, she's like, oh, it looks like you picked the wrong horse. She's like, looks like you might've picked the dead horse, as far as like who to get behind. And I thought that was pretty funny how she turned that on him. And then, in that same exchange, we get, a moment where Shiv kind of blames herself, or she blames the siblings for Logan's death. She says that, had they not have, wanted Logan to renegotiate with Matsson, he wouldn't have been on that plane to go see the Swede, so who knows, like if he weren't on that plane, he might've been around for 20 years or so. And he could quote unquote rock his grandkids to sleep, which Tom goes, yeah, as he was so evidently keen to do, which I thought was funny. Cause like, of course, like that's not Logan's MO at all, but that also points to like, it was kind of a way for Shiv to tell Tom that she was pregnant. It was kind of her way to go. Cause like, obviously Kendall has kids. So like Logan's had grandkids for years. And I don't think she cares about Kendall's kids. I mean, probably more than Logan did, but like Logan never cared about those kids. So I thought that was interesting how she kind of like dropped the grandkids on him to kind of let Tom know. And Tom is oblivious. He still doesn't know what's going on. Marcy, what'd you think about that scene?
Yeah, to touch upon that, Tom didn't even like skip a beat or even like think about that at all. So that's how much over his head it went. Because I expected him to maybe take a pause, take a beat, and then think like, okay, why would she say that? Like Kendall's kids are, like teens, like he's not going to be rocking them. But
Right.
no, like he just completely keeps going with that quip about, yeah, like everybody knew Logan to rock his grandkids to sleep. But that was a scene that I think Shiv really showed us how much she was grieving at first. When the episode started, we saw her look sad, but then with her siblings, again, they're just kind of making some jokes when they were reading some of the newspaper articles and the headlines about Logan's death. So
Yeah.
I think she was kind of trying to play it off a little bit, but in the scene with Tom, I think she felt like she could be a little bit more vulnerable, even if she didn't want to. And she's kind of blaming herself. And if we hadn't, wanted to renegotiate the deal, he wouldn't have been on the airplane. But he also was not somebody who was in the prime of his life or in the best of shape or best of health anyway. So I think she's probably blaming herself when she doesn't need to be. I think it would be a different story if Logan had been like this young guy and like the airplane crashed. Like that's something that you wouldn't have seen coming. But
Right.
they all saw this coming. They knew that their dad had been sick and had health problems. So I think she's just like extra emotional, but I don't know why she's blaming herself too much.
Yeah, I mean, she also comments in her little exchange with Tom is that, she feels like she's the only person who actually lost something that she didn't want to lose, meaning her dad. Which is, I mean, obviously her dad, like her relationship with her dad, much like his relationship with any of his children, is so complicated and like so like messed up that it's hard to. I mean, I guess all these people do love Logan, as their dad, but like they all have something, and for rightly so, they have things that, against him. But she spins it off like, all these people are here for this event, for this wake, and they're all just trying to like do what's best for them. And she's like, I actually lost something that I didn't want to lose. So I thought that was interesting. But Tom did tell her, like, kind of like what you're saying, Marcy, that, like, yeah, he died on that plane, but he could have died a million other ways. Like he could have been in the bathroom at his house. He could have been, in the boardroom or something. Like he was 84 years old and he was in bad health anyway. So it wasn't like he had 20 more years to live, I don't think. So I don't know. I thought that was a good scene between those two. A lot of think about this episode, and that's kind of the hallmark of Succession, is you have a lot of stuff happen in very short scenes. These interactions are just like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, but there's a lot of stuff happens in that whether it be just acting with the body language or obviously what they say, but everything is like meaningful, even though it's like quick, back and forth, the repartee, that kind of stuff. So that was another example of that. So let's get to the meat of the episode now. This is the really interesting part. So Frank, not our Frank, but I will ask our Frank about this. But so Frank in the show, he finds an undated document in Logan's safe, and the document seems to name Kendall as his successor upon his death. So, and the document shows Kendall's name, and it's got a line that's like kind of underlining it, but also kind of through his name. So I'm gonna pose a question to y'all, but first off, I want to mention. So Frank finds this. He talks to Carl about it, and then they talk to Jerry about it. I love how they're all like, like this really, it's not dated. We think it's like 4 years old or whatever. It really has no like legal standing. And they all kind of make separate jokes about, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if it just went missing or if it found its way to a toilet or whatever. And I love how like each person is like, like, oh, that would be very comical. And then like Jerry's like, yeah, that would be a very good joke. And like, about how if this note just disappeared. But alas, it doesn't. They tell Kendall about it. And Kendall is stunned by this note. You can tell this is from the episode 1 of this show. This is what he always wanted. He thought he was a successor. He was a successor in the beginning of the series. And and this is what he wants, whether it's, a line that was struck through it or it's underlined or whatever, his name was on the piece of paper. And like, he's psyched about that. So Frank, I'm going to go to you. Do you think that Kendall's name was underlined, meaning he was Logan's choice? Or do you think his name was struck through because he was no longer on the list?
Logan comes off as a very certain man as far as what he wants and what he doesn't want.
Yeah.
I feel like if Kendall's name was intended to be crossed out, it would have been more definitive that was crossed out. Okay. It's not like it's Tom crossing out a name. Like Tom gives me that vibe of like, well, I kind of want to cross it out, but I'm not sure. Or Greg. I don't get that from Logan. I think at the time when that name was underlined, in my opinion, I think Logan, his intent was to make him the successor. But because throughout the series, you saw him go, sway back and forth with Kendall's drug addiction and, hating one child and going to another child and promising this child, power of the company, they do X, Y, and Z. So I think Logan's decision was, made just, in that particular season. We could find 4 or 5 more documents probably that has Shiv's or Roman's name on it too. I also think, and this is me thinking again, I think Frank and Carl and Jerry decided to throw a wrench into the pipeline of like bringing this document out. Damn well it has to been, sign off by a lawyer or legitimize just to create more division within the siblings, which it did. I think that was the goal in bringing that out. I just don't think Logan. I think Logan would have been more definitive of crossing it out and not. It looks underlined to me. To me, it does. It doesn't look crossed out at all.
Okay, interesting. Marcy, same question. What do you think? Crossed out or underlined?
I think it was underlined because, again, like Frank said, if he was like crossing it out because he was upset at Kendall or whatever, I think it would have been a more definitive like cross out or just like, I don't know, show more emotion and, the cross out. I think it was underlined. I do agree with Frank again that they agreed to let the kids know about this piece of paper, not because they wanted to do like the morally right thing to do and, be completely honest, but again, to like sow more division between the siblings and cause more chaos. And then they probably also thought that would really mess with Kendall's head just because he has been just fragile before and he's got like issues with addiction and things like that. I think maybe they wanted to see him in a pool again, like who knows, but I definitely think it was underlined. But I don't think that that's what Kendall thought.
No, Kendall did not think that whatsoever. And so y'all both went with underline. I think it's crossed out. And here's my reasoning. I think that this document, like Kendall's name was originally put on the document before the series started, right? Because as season 1 opens, Kendall's the guy, and that quickly changes, right? Logan decides, no, I'm gonna keep doing this, maybe for 5 more years or whatever he mentions. I'm gonna keep doing this, right? So I think that like Logan just marked it off the list. Like I don't think like I think that's why it's kind of partly underlined, partly like crossed out. I think he was marking him off. And I think that also because they said, hey, there's also an addendum here about Greg, and it's in pencil with a question mark. So the fact that he didn't know who Greg was until, what was it, episode 1 of the series. So I think that after what happened in the first couple episodes, I think that's when Logan amended this document, and in pencil, he put Greg with a question mark. And I love the whole conversation about how, Greg comes in there and he's like, okay, he's like, I want to like, what does this mean? And they're like, well, we're not really sure. And he's like, well, Logan or Greg's like, well, I think that probably means Kendall is listed as the CEO. So he probably listed me as Ken's number 2. And like Frank just busts up laughing. Like, And I mean, it was a funny moment in the show because it's like, yes, of all people, Logan's going to list Greg as the number 2, and then Greg is like defending, and he's like, hey, we had good rapport, and it's because then Roman's like, he's like, he didn't want to see you, he wanted to see less of you, and then Greg is like, he's like, it's a question mark, but I think it's more of like a wonder, like, could Greg be more? And then Jerry jumps in. She's like, it's a doodle, like I love how they're fighting over this, like this old man just like striking through a name or whatever he's doing. Like they take it so seriously. And Marcy, yeah, is what you said exactly right. No one takes it more seriously than Kendall. This is like his whole world has changed this day. Now that he sees his name, now that he believes that maybe his dad, put his name on there, or he's going to run with it regardless because his name's on the paper. So whether or not he truly believes his dad was appointing him the successor or if his dad was marking him off from something that happened in the past, Kendall's using this as the opportunity to take charge. Right. And I love how, Shiv, she doesn't want to be slighted either. And so she's also questioning the legitimacy of this document, and they're going back and forth. And Kendall hits her with, he's like, well, it sure as fucking shit doesn't say Shiv. Now, does it? And that was so funny because, I mean, that's the truth, because had it said Shiv on there, she would have been doing an argument similar to what Kendall was doing. I mean, it would have been probably a more elegant way of saying it because, I mean, I don't know. Kendall's pretty good at that kind of stuff, but like she would have been arguing the same side as Kendall is.
But this is my problem with like this was my concern about Logan dying.
Yeah.
Because like in three seasons and 4 episodes now, the kids have shown no maturity. These motherfuckers are 40 plus. Roman might be in his late 30s, who knows? But
right.
And Kendall for sure in their 40s. And for them to show no growth as leaders, to show no growth as adults, like they're infighting about a fucking document that hasn't been legitimized or even discussed with their father in God knows how long. And it's kind of like, you don't see that the old guard are your enemy. You don't see that they purposely brought this out to create division. Like nobody sees this out of the 3 siblings. Like y'all don't read this as fishy that this will come out the day of your father's wake, right before the big board meeting. Nobody thinks on this. Nobody thinks amongst these siblings. The board meeting is literally an hour or hour and a half during this episode of like who's gonna take over, and nobody's questioning like why did this document come out an hour and a half before our board meeting to vote our new leader. It's just, I don't know. It frustrates me that this is such stagnant development with these kids as far as like somebody stepping up to be a leader and be mature enough to like lead this company.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point you bring up because it would be like a strategic move by the old guard. And that's what I was thinking originally. But then the fact that right away they tell everybody else, it seems like when the document's found, Frank tells Carl, and then you think like, okay, this is going to be their little secret. But then Jerry walks in and she's included. So, because there's division within their ranks also, they're not all on the same page necessarily. And then right away they're telling Kendall and they're telling the other kids. So like, I understand what you're saying, but I don't really know how that would really help them because yes, it's creating division, but there's always division with these people. And all this document is doing is basically giving power to somebody. And whether it be an old document, but it's saying, hey, the founder of this company wanted this person to potentially be the person to run the company in his absence. So they're kind of giving away the crown, so to speak. What do you think, Frank?
And that's a great point, Justin. Yeah. I think the reason why they did that, because I'm not sure how many people are on this board, but was led to believe that it's going to come down to a vote, right?
Yep.
And I think Jerry, Frank, and I feel like the old guard's goal was to create so much division amongst 3 siblings about Kendall being the guy that it would split the votes to the point where the old guard would have had majority rule or whatever. Old guard meaning one of the three people from the old guard of being a leader.
Yeah.
So I feel like once this division, then Ewing, Greg's grandfather, may split a vote to the old guard, or maybe Marsha, or maybe a lot of the other Sandy and Stewie. Maybe their vote gets split once they see this paper that's not been legitimized. Okay, well I'll go this out with the vote.
Yeah,
I think that's what to me that's what the goal was to create division. Come the vote that the old guard will take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that. It's honestly like my head's spinning, because when you think about all these characters and like they've all had back dealings with each other, it's hard to ever know who's on your side or not. Like it's really, whether it be someone who's your blood, or like in Stewie's case, he's like Kendall's best friend, his oldest friend, but then Kendall screwed him and Stewie screwed him. So it's like, to me, if I were in this world, I wouldn't know who to trust. I would trust no one, and like, maybe you're right. Maybe that's a good strategy by the old guard to present that document. And obviously the timing of it is very strange, because of all days, they find this undated document that only really stirs up things. It's interesting. Marcy, what do you think about the document being found? Do you think it was a ploy? Do you think it was legitimate? What are your thoughts on
that? I think it was kind of legitimate that it was found so like soon before the board meeting. Again, I think they could have played it a little bit better, the old guard. But again, they keep on like hammering home the fact that this is just like an interim thing, right? This isn't like the for sure thing.
Right.
So I think even if they were like, okay, like maybe one of the kids will like take the spot, the CEO spot in the interim, like they're not going to be able to keep it, either because they're going to be inept, or because there's going to be so much infighting, or they're going to like stab each other in the back. I just don't think anybody has any confidence in the four of them, if you include Connor, to ever be able to really do anything, which I think is Logan's like biggest failing. You had 40 plus years with these kids to be able to prepare them to take over your company when you were gone, but you weren't able to. So yeah, but I think he underlined it, because I think as much as Kendall feels like his dad didn't believe in him and hated him, I think maybe he still felt like Kendall might have what it takes more so than his siblings to run the company. Because if he was able to turn against his dad and try to stab him in the back, he's probably like, oh yeah, like he's willing to do it to me, then he's ruthless. Like he could probably run the company.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, I just think the only thing about my point about it, I think, being crossed out, is I just think that if Logan if he puts it on paper, I don't think he'd feel the need to underline it. Like I think he'd feel secure in whatever decision he was making, and then like a lazy like cross out is more of a way for him to dispatch somebody than it is for him to go, oh yeah, this person definitively is my choice. But I like how they did it, where honestly, you could see it either way. Like I don't know that we're ever going to truly we won't get the answer, because Logan's dead. And so it's all up to how these people interpret it and what happens going forward. But a very smart like decision in this show to literally make it a coin toss kind of debate topic. So, and that really helped podcasters like us. So we appreciate it. Thanks, Succession. We appreciate all your help.
I just find it weird that the family, the kids, Marsha, the Roys, and then like look into like to see if he had a will, to see to meet his lawyer, to see if any documents were like submitted to his lawyer about the company and about deal. Because like that paper they found was not signed. It was not signed or notarized by anybody, a lawyer, a bank, nothing. So
right.
I'm surprised that Kendall. I'm surprised Shiv, Kendall, and Roman's response was, well, it's not signed or notarized. Let's go check our dad's lawyer and talk to them and see what was discussed in case of his untimely demise.
Well, I think that isn't Frank one of his lawyers, or wasn't he kind of like, I mean, I feel like Frank does have some kind of a law background, as does Jerry.
Yeah, didn't
So
he say he's the executor? So I
right.
imagine
He is?
he's
Oh, okay.
the
I missed that.
guy handling all of the will type things. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing maybe like he knows what's in the will, but this was like an addendum that he's like, oh shit, like what do we do with this?
Right.
Okay. I missed that part. Okay.
No, I mean it is kind of complicated to keep track of because these people they're kind of, I mean, they have defined roles in the company, but in the show they do so many different things and they're all angling for something else. So it's really is hard to keep track of. Like you would need like a, you know, a whatchamacallit, like a a job
Table of
board,
contents.
yeah, or something like that, or like a, oh, I can't even think of the word I'm trying to think of, but like a chart of like,
Org
like,
chart.
there you go,
Org
an org
chart,
chart.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to think of. Yeah, we really need that on the show to understand like who reports to who and whatever, that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah, I thought it was, I don't know, that was a very interesting part of this episode, and really one of the more um interesting tweaks, especially when you get rid of a major character. This is a way to keep that character to continue the character's essence of the character is to have, a note from the character that is can go either way. So very creative way for them to spin it. Of course, the siblings then meet after this to kind of determine, what they should do because, Kendall is like, I'm on the piece of paper guy. So he feels like he should be there. But as Roman said, like Roman is the COO, so he should be involved also. And then, as we've seen in the first few episodes of the season, the siblings, Shiv and Kendall and Roman, have kind of banded together and they have this, they have all these ideas of what they want to do with, whether it be, buying this PGM or, you know, that takeover, but buying that or, creating something new like the 100 they talked about in episode 1. Um, they've kind of been a group. And I think that, that being in a group together means that no one is above the other one, right? Or the other two. But in this case, Kendall is, he's being given the rights to be in charge, but they eventually decide that Kendall and Roman should run the company as co-CEOs, since you know, since the leadership is supposed to be passed on to the COO, which at the time of the document that probably was Kendall, but now it's currently Roman, but then Kendall is listed by name. So they're going to be co-CEOs, but they promised to involve Shiv in all the decisions and everything. But I mean, I, she definitely feels like, she's being left out because she is right. Marcy, I mean, isn't that kind of your feeling with this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because she's been there before, she's been left out before, they've kind of slighted her before, but also I think she's also wondering if this is what happens now before I even have a kid, how much worse is it going to be after I have a kid? Then they might use that as an excuse to again like further cut me out. So I
Right.
think not only is she dealing with the feelings of like shit, I've been here before and they're doing this to me again, and oh man, like how much worse is it going to be later on? So I don't think she really believes them that, it's all going to be equal. And I don't think I believe them either, honestly.
No, I don't think that they believe themselves. Like you can kind of see on their faces that like, oh yeah, this will be, we'll split it 3 ways and we're gonna run by, you're inside of everything. You're a part of all this, and it all seems like bullshit. Frank, what do you think about the co-CEOs, about how they said that, oh, 2 works, 3 would be kind of wonky to have 3 CEOs, which I do agree with that. That's kind of weird, but like, I mean, having 2, it's like the old saying, like if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks, right? So now you've got 2 CEOs. What are your thoughts? What's your thoughts on that?
I just want to preface by saying this. My Facebook status for today is 3 is a bit wonky, 2 is a fuck, 3 is a weird orgy for hippies. So that is my Facebook status for today. By way of Roman Roy. Here's my thing. Again, this goes back to me saying how stupid the siblings are. Shiv can easily mitigate this by saying, you know what, if it's going to be co-COOs, but I have 33% as well, then I need that in writing. I need that in writing so my lawyer can see it. So if any wonky shit goes on, I still have 33% of controlling interest amongst leadership. And like she's over here like questioning her siblings and questioning whether or not to tell the truth, where you have the money and the guap to get a lawyer and get this on paper. I don't see why she's stressing over this, because once you have a lawyer and once you have this on paper, then you're good. And so if any shady shit goes on, you can sue them, for breach of contract or breach of position. So I don't know. I feel like the writing is becoming so elementary that we're losing the aspect of like these people are rich and they have these resources to ensure that things should be done the way that they agreed upon. And I don't think Shiv is using her head on that.
I mean, at the very least, go ahead, Marcy.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, Frank, that's an interesting point. And I think if they weren't siblings, maybe like that would factor into it. But I think the fact that they are siblings adds another element to where like maybe in some like way deep down inside, she feels more like she could believe them rather if it was just like two other guys, maybe like Frank and Carl that she was dealing with. I think it all just goes back to like your basic relationships with your siblings. And that's what like fucks them over all the time, because not only are you trying to deal with each other as adults and as professionals and as business people and trying to lead this company, but you're also working through a lot of the shit that you worked through together as kids, whether it was like your dad not being there for you or just kind of your own infighting as siblings. So I think maybe that's kind of what is driving some of these choices that we're like, oh, like that is so stupid. Why are you believing them, Shiv? Like they're totally gonna fuck you over.
But that's my whole point. Like she's been fucked over before by her family, so why would she think any differently? That's not gonna happen again.
I think also, given what's happening with her in this time, like she just found out she's pregnant. She's obviously going through a divorce with Tom. I think she's kind of in a victim kind of state where I think there's also a lot of pride involved with dealing with her brothers. Like I think she doesn't want to, give them the satisfaction of, not believing what they're gonna. I know that sounds weird, but like I think she wants to like, and don't get me wrong, like she can definitely hang with those guys. I mean, she's probably more competent than they are anyway, but I think there's a pride factor, and also with what's going on, I think she can kind of see it coming, and so she's just kind of like giving into this, like, well, I'm the victim. Nothing's going my way today. My dad died. I'm pregnant. I don't think I want to be pregnant. I'm divorcing this guy. Like, I think that this is like, I mean, she says it like that. She makes the comment about, oh, what a great fucking day. Or, I mean, she's obviously saying a terrible day. She says that over and over in this episode. So this is definitely like one of the worst days of her life. And I don't think she's like thinking about it maybe business wise. It's everything is so personal because it's all these personal things are happening to her. Just my take on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say no. I agree. I mean, I think the pregnancy angle of her being emotional and trying to figure out a way to deal with that and how to feel about it. Yeah, I'm sure it's adding complexities to the decision that was being made of her brothers being co-COOs. I don't know, man. Like she's worked in politics, she's worked in business, she knows her family better than anybody. To me, it would have been more believable to know that she had the intellectual fortitude to have safeguards like lawyers to say, you know what, my family has fucked me time and time again. I'm not taking your word. I'm going to get lawyers and let's just lawyer up and make sure that my assets are protected and my position is protected. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about it, sorry, Justin, I was just going to say, when you think about it, Frank, like even like in real life, like family is typically the one who fucks us over the most times because we keep on giving them the benefit of the doubt and we keep on giving them chances because it's harder to cut out family than it is to cut out like a person that fucks us over one time and we can be like, oh, like I'm not going to like deal with you anymore. And we don't. But family, you still have to, even if you don't want to in a lot of cases. Or again, like you try to feel like, okay, like maybe they've changed. I mean, how many times did Logan fuck over not only his kids, but his wives? And like his kids were still there, even if at the end, if at the last few years, like they backstabbed each other, or like they were having serious issues with each other, like his kids were still there. They could have just like separated themselves and gone off and like actually done something on their own to be proud of, and not have to like fight for like this one thing, which is, well, two things: the love of your dad and also like the CEO position. But they weren't able to ever like just break away from him, no matter how much he'd screwed them over. So I think that's at play a lot too. It's like, yeah, they're screwing me over, but they're still my family, which is kind of like what a lot of people struggle with.
No, I totally agree. Absolutely.
And I think something else we haven't mentioned is when this is all happening, the board vote is like 10 minutes away. So there's a deadline also. So they're needing to come to a decision. And but when they thought it was just going to be Kendall, even Roman was like, "Hey, I'd rather it be one of us than one of the old guard, right? We'd rather one of us should get it as opposed to those guys." So I think the deadline plays a part because it's happening like right now. But I do agree with Frank. Like I feel like even if Shiv had like consulted Marcia, get a spit in the handshake, like some kind of official thing, that could have made this happen, but I do think there's part of Shiv in her character. I think that she has reason to feel like the get victim sometimes, but I think she was kind of giving into that given what's going on with this day in her life. So, but again, that makes her an interesting character. Like these are all very flawed people. There's no perfect person, like there's not a Superman in this story. Like these are very dysfunctional, very wealthy people, but very dysfunctional people. So they make the decision that it's going to be it's going to be Kendall and Roman, and they come out of the boardroom and everybody's celebrating and shaking their hands and high fives and all that stuff. And I love how Greg jumps in. He's like, "Long live the king and the other king." Like Greg is just working his way in. Like this guy, the bumbling kid who couldn't hack it with the as the mascot at one of the parks in the first episode, that this guy, talk about a career arc. He's gone the full gambit. Now he's like, he's full kissing ass mode, just trying to like get with whoever is who's in charge, which now it's both Kendall and Roman. So after that, we get to Carolina and Hugo. They meet with Kendall and Roman because they've got some PR and comms issues, which Frank and we're pretty familiar with comms issues. But so they're trying to explain like, hey, like we really need to there's a couple of ways we can play this for the press and for the media. Is there's different campaigns we can kind of put out there as far as like introducing y'all as the new CEOs. There's one way where we can just say like, hey, like we're keeping it in the family. Like Logan Roy's gone, but his two sons are going to run the company and they're going to run it his way. And it's just going to be a continuation of the Roy dynasty and it's going to be great. Or there's option two where, as Roman says, the shit on dad strategy, where we're going to put out stuff in the press about how, yeah, Logan Roy was a great man, but the last couple of years of his life, his kids and other people around him were making a lot of the calls. They were making the decisions and they were keeping the company going while he was in declining health and as he was aging. And it's interesting because Roman, he shuts this down like right away. Cause I do think of all the kids, he seems to, despite what he said about not feeling that bad during this episode, he did love his dad the most. And I think his dad loved him the most. It seems like, it's hard to truly say, but his dad loved him the most at the end for sure. Like that's the only one he was talking to on a personal basis that he like actually wanted to be around. So there's that aspect of it, right? So Roman shuts it down, and Kendall is wise to PR kind of stuff, and so he goes, yeah, he's like, yeah, let's never do that. But then after the meeting breaks up, Kendall grabs Hugo, which, by the way, Hugo had a couple of key scenes early in the episode. We find out early in the episode that Hugo's daughter, I guess he kind of spoke to her the day before when Logan died, and there's some kind of insider trading going on where she sold some of her stocks in Waystar Royco when she found out that Logan died. So earlier in the episode, Hugo approaches Kendall and says, "Hey, I've got this issue, and like I'd really appreciate it if it went away." And Kendall's like, he's like, "Well, but what are the phone records going to show?" And I like how Hugo's like, I don't recall. I can't recollect or whatever. I love how like it's like, this happened yesterday, dude. Like, you told us that you don't talk to your daughter ever, but you call her the day that Logan Roy dies, and she's selling stock because of his death. Like, she found out before other people did, so she jumped on it. So that's one of the things. Also, as he's leaving a voicemail for his daughter in the beginning, Hugo's talking about how like his daughter's name is Juliet. He's like, "Juliet, you really fucked me. You fucked me on this." He's like, "You got the strap on out and you fucked me." And so, the second we heard that in the beginning, I was like, that's going to come back around, because they don't just, this show never just says stuff and lets it like linger. Like, they're like, if they say something, they're bringing it right back. Usually in that episode, if not within the season or a couple episodes. So, Hugo went to Kendall looking for a favor. Well, now Kendall's in charge, and Kendall sees an opportunity for himself now. And he's going to use Hugo. He goes to Hugo privately and tells him like, "Look, like, let's go with option 2." He's like, "But let's soft serve it. Like, we don't want it to get back to us, but let's go with the shit on dad strategy, because that's what dad would have wanted." I love how he like positions it. Like, that's the move dad would have done. He was ruthless. That's what we're going to do. And so Kendall, like, I don't know how and I'll get y'all's reaction, but like, I'm not sure if like if he really believes that's what his dad would do, or if this is his way to get back at his dad, is to take the CEO spot and shit on his dad in the process. Marcy, what do you think about that?
I think maybe both. I think he knows it's probably what his dad would do. But I don't know. I think maybe he hadn't decided on that tactic until he was in the bathroom and he was right. Like, he was inspecting that picture that he had taken of that document closely. Like, did he underline it? Did he cross it off? And I think at that moment is when he was like, God damn it, he crossed it out. Like, I'm going to like get back at him. So while like the first option, like the, dad is great, we love him, is going to be like the official comms that they go with, the official comm strategy. Like, the other strategy that nobody else besides Kendall and Hugo know about is that they're going to like on the down low, like really like shit on dad. So that was brilliant on Kendall's part to be like, okay, like, you need something from me. Like, well, now you're going to do this other thing for me and nobody can ever know about it. But Hugo had some balls on him too. Like, that was kind of like Godfather type style. Like, on my daughter's wedding day, like on my father's like wake day, like, you come up to me, like needing this favor from me that like your own daughter fucked up. Right. Yeah. So, Hugo, okay. Like, I didn't know you had it in you, but I guess everybody in the Succession world just has the balls on them to do whatever is going to take care of them first. But no, way to go, Kendall. Again, like, that was kind of a boss move. I kind of didn't think he had it in him. I think he'd been a little bit fragile, but he was like, fuck it. No.
Yeah. Frank, what do you think about Kendall's decision to shit on dad by leaking stories about Carrie or the Marcia situation or what happened with Connor's first or with Connor's mom? Like,
so I think two things can be true, right? So I think Hugo can say, I think Kendall's full of shit. I don't think Kendall means that. While simultaneously, I think Kendall is speaking the truth. I think if Logan was in Kendall's spot, and if Logan's father was dying or died, and he knew, and knowing Logan how he is or how he was, how everything proceed nothing precedes the business. Not family, not obligation, not love.
Yeah.
It's all about the legacy of the business. I wholeheartedly feel that Logan would have fucked over his own dead father to make sure to prop up the company and put it into a better stratosphere of success than what it was prior. So I do believe Kendall believe what he says. I think Logan would do the same thing. And then also we had evidence in the past seasons. There's been countless times where Logan told Kendall, "You're not a killer," right? And then like a season, I want to say the season finale of season 2, when Kendall's about to go down, or they want Kendall to take the bullet for Waystar, he throws his own dad on the bus, right? And like that's when all of the allegations came out about the park and the sexual assault and all that kind of stuff. And I remember like it was yesterday. Logan told Kendall, like, "Man, you're a killer. That's something that I didn't think he was capable of that." And I think in Succession heaven right now, Succession hell, Logan is looking up or down like at Kendall, like, "Good chess move. Okay, I fucks with it, son. I fucks with it." I think Logan is proud of him for making that move. Is it slimy? Of course, but it's the Roy way. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that.
I just wonder, what is Roman going to think when he sees this stuff?
Oh, he's gonna hate it. It's gonna create division.
Yeah,
because I mean I know we discussed this pod over and over again about whether or not Roman is Logan's favorite. I don't know if Roman is Logan's favorite. I think Logan saw Roman as his favorite kid to manipulate because he's the baby, and there's an affection that Roman has for him that Logan can always manipulate. And I think from Roman's perspective, I think once he finds out that Kendall leaked that shit out, which he will find out because that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I think that it's going to create division, and it might give opportunity for Roman to go to Shiv, as far as like, "Hey, Kendall's tripping. Let's try to wrestle with some power away from Kendall."
Yeah, I mean, there's like Roman, once he sees this stuff in the press, he's going to know who the source is. Like, regardless of, how he gets out there, he's going to know that Kendall and Hugo stirred this up and got it going. I don't think there's any way that he wouldn't know that. Marcy, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, because right now I'm wondering, like, is Hugo good enough to be able to get that information and those stories out there in a way that they're going to be like, "Oh, that's definitely coming from somewhere else. How did they know that?" So they're going to get the wrath of Roman, but I think they're also going to get the wrath of Carolina, because again, like, she's all about like crafting like the perfect image and brand and like comm strategy. I think she's also going to be super pissed when she's like, "What the fuck? This isn't what we agreed upon." So that will be interesting as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because this season we've seen like Carolina and Hugo kind of on different pages. Like, you remember in episode 2 when Hugo and Jerry are in the conference room and Hugo's watching Carrie's audition tape for the anchor spot and he's laughing or whatever. Carolina is the one who walks in with Logan, and Hugo's like, "Oh, hey Carolina, can you run the meeting on your computer?" And it's like, she's like, "Yeah, but you're supposed to. Like, why can't you?" Like, they're not exactly, I mean, they're on the same team, so to speak, but they're not like, I think that's a good point. I think we could definitely see a Roy versus Roy with a comms versus comm battle. Like, all these people have, they're no one's on the same team. Even Jerry and Roman, as we've seen, like they're definitely not on the same side anymore. So it's really interesting. And looking ahead to next week's episode, looks like we're gonna see they're gonna go talk to the Swede Matsson, played by Alexander Skarsgård. So which we found out in this episode, they're having their big retreat. Gojo's having their big retreat, and it's so important. Like, he couldn't come to the States to meet with the family or for Logan's funeral or wake or whatever. So
talk about boss move power play, bro. like dude, that's the ultimate. My dick is bigger than yours. Like, fuck your dad, fuck his death. what I got going, nigga, you need me. You need my money. You need my bank.
Well,
Make time for it. That's
not only that,
that's what it was.
but it's how Matsson's guy Oscar, which was spelled Oskar, how he handled the call, because Roman didn't answer the original call from Matsson. And so when he called him right back, his Matsson's guy Oscar picked up the phone and was like, yeah, now he doesn't really want to talk to you, like, because you missed his call. And yeah, the way he handles like the Logan stuff, they're like, oh yeah, we heard about that. Yeah, we feel real bad. We're sorry. Like none of it is sincere. It's all just, they're just bullshitting
But
with the
again, this
kids.
is another problem I have with the kids. Like, you didn't think to like have a group sesh about like how this call may go, like, or have a discussion about who's going to lead the call, or have a discussion about who's going to lead this potential deal. Like when they make the call, Shiv is like, oh yeah, we're gonna get together and figure this out. Like, no, you should have got together and figure this out before you even calling Matsson and his people. It makes you look so unprepared again. And it's like, have you not learned anything from Logan over the last 40 years about business and being prepared and like not showing, tipping your hand and showing your playing hand? Like, they look desperate now. And Matsson knows that. He knows that he knows the king is dead. He knows that the cockroaches are trying to suck the power teat, and they're trying to figure out who's gonna be the man or the woman. And Matsson knows, like, y'all need me. Like, I'm letting motherfuckers sweat now.
Yeah, and I just speculating. I think Matsson's going to try to buy ATN. I think he's going to try to. I mean, because they're going to renegotiate. That's why the kids are going to Sweden to meet with him, and I think he has a counteroffer where, I think he's going to want to. I think he wants it all now because Logan was going to keep ATN because that was kind of like his founding part of the company, or the part of the company that he liked the most, or whatever. Was the his conservative news channel. That was like his baby. Well, the kids don't care anything about that. I mean, it's just an asset to them. And we've talked about before, they don't really have a tremendous understanding about money. They've always had just gobs of it, so they don't really understand the value of money. And I don't see why they would give a shit about ATN. So I think it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens with the renegotiation in the next episode. Marcy, what do you think? What do you see coming?
I just see a lot more chaos, which I'm totally like psyched for. Again, maybe he does try to buy ATN. I just see a lot more chaos, and I'm so here for it.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be his play, is just to buy it all, or it may be the opposite. Maybe he wants to, only buy ATN or only buy certain things. Because I mean, I think Matsson, whatever he's going to do, it's going to be a big move. Whether it's like buying everything or just totally messing with them. And I just want the cable channel, or I just want the cruise line, or whatever. Like to really mess this up for them, because they need at least 10 billion for this to work out, right? That's the deal on the table. If they get anything less, they're going to look like failures. And I mean, if they get anything less, they can't do their other plans, which who knows if they're even going to follow through with their other plans of buying Pierce and all that stuff. But they need the money, and Matsson knows that. So he's going to make them squirm. And yeah, it looks like it's going to be an awesome episode. I'm really looking forward to that.
He's going to lowball them, I think. I think he's going to lowball them.
Oh, yeah. No, I think so too. Yeah.
Because he knows the stock is probably going to drop.
Yep.
A lot. This potential insider trading with Higo's daughter is going to bring more bad press. And I think he's going to, if Matsson is smart, I think what he's going to do is he's going to make himself look like the hero. And like, look, I saved this company from dire straits with such uncertainty, and I'm going to make it a bigger, better platform for the Gen Z and millennials of the future.
Yeah. Or maybe he decides to buy Pierce out from under them. Maybe he buys Pierce before they could even do that, or I don't know. I just think something like that's going to happen. And as we saw in the little trailer for next week, Jerry, we're not exactly sure the context of what she's saying, but she's like, they have no idea what's coming to them. And I think I don't know exactly what she's talking about, but I know she's talking about the kids. What she's referencing. I'm not totally sure, but I think we're led to believe that Matsson's going to eat them up because, this is more his realm. He, he kind of made himself into this billionaire tech guy or whatever, and the kids are just, along for the ride as they have been their whole lives. So really interested to see what happens next. So just kind of wrapping up, let's get like final thoughts. Marcy, what all in all, how does this episode stand in regards to the other ones this season?
I really liked it. Maybe not the strongest, but it was maybe one of the most enjoyable ones of the season so far. Again, because they were able to sprinkle in some of that levity and some of those jokes and that sarcasm into it. So I'm really like excited to see future episodes, what happens with Shiv and Tom, and aside from all the other crazy shit that's going on. Because I think they said she's nearing like 20 weeks, so she can't be able to hide it much longer. So I'm just kind of wanting to see like what comes of that.
Yeah, when that happened, when that announcement is kind of made or whatever. Yeah, there's so many like layers of this show that's like we've only got 6 episodes left for it to unfold. So a lot of stuff. Frank, what are your kind of final thoughts?
I want to see where the company ends up, and like, is it Matsson that comes in that cleans up and becomes the man? Do one of the siblings arise from the ashes of immaturity and makes a difference and runs a company, or does the old guard have another, trick up their sleeve? I mean, I have a feeling that Jerry, Carl, and Frank are not done. I think, and like the Hugo spin of insider trading, I think is really going to play a part in under Kendall's interim watch, and that could be something that destroys Kendall. Especially if there's any type of like documentation or witnessing that Kendall knew about it and said nothing about it. That could hurt them, and I can see the old guard taking advantage of that, or the siblings. So we're gonna see a lot more deceit and betrayal over the next 6 episodes. Was it 6 episodes, Justin? 7? Yeah. I think we're gonna see a lot more deceit and betrayal for sure, and I'm here for it. Let's get it.
Yeah, this show is gonna finish strong, just like it's. I mean, it's just kind of chugged along for all 4 seasons, and to me, this is like such a consistent show. Like to me, it's hard to like pick out my favorite episode because they're all like of equal quality, and this was like just another one of those where, I mean, every episode, like I feel like I enjoyed as much as the last one, but I also feel like I don't really know what's going to happen, and that's also what makes it really interesting because I don't have a great prediction on what I think is going to be the end of this show. I mean, I feel like this cycle is just going to keep spinning. Like there is no ultimate winner in this thing. They all just kind of lose or win in their own way. It just keeps going. And so I'm really interested to see how this ends, but next week's episode looks like it's going to be a banger episode because they're going to be in another country, which that always kind of brings out the best in this show is whenever they go somewhere like on location. I mean, hell, they could just be like, they could be like in a broom closet to be interesting, but like when they go somewhere exotic or whatever, it's always kind of funny, or it's always kind of fun to watch that all play out. And basically, no matter where they go, if all the characters get in the same room, then you basically have the same dynamics regardless of the location. But yeah, this is a great show, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends. So now you know what we think about this episode. We don't know what you think about it. And one way you can tell us what you think about it is by, like, if you're watching this video right now, you could comment in our chat. We'd appreciate it. Leave a comment below. And hey, if you're watching this now or later, do me a favor, give us a like, subscribe to our channel. Like, I think we're up to like 250 on subscribers. So we really appreciate everybody who's subscribed. We'd love to like keep that number going up. We've been adding a lot of subscribers the last year or so. Like we passed the 100 mark and the 200 mark in the past year. So we really appreciate it. Let's keep that going. Spread the word. Tell people we're out there. And you can do that on social media. Also, we're on social media. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at Watcher's Basement. Let us know what you think about the episode there. Tell us, hey, if you have a recommendation, something we should be watching, or something you'd like to see us review, let us know. And if you're using social media, use the hashtag Watchers Basement to let us know what's going up. We can find what you're saying easier that way. And also, we do this this live stream podcast every week, but we also have the audio version of our show if you prefer the audio version. So we're on audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So check us out there. And hey, if you're checking us out on the audio platforms, give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate it. It really helps us out. So that about does it for this week. So thanks to Marcy. Thanks to Frank. This is Justin saying we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good night. Bye-bye.